You're listening to the Good Food CFO podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Delavan, and with us, as always, is our producer, Chelsea Steer. Hey, Chelsea.
Hey, Sarah. This month of October has been a wild ride around here as we prepare to bring financial strategy software to the world. And part of that ride has been doing beta testing with our members. And we've had a few meetings at this point, like with those members. And we've had a lot of I want to say like feedback or insights that they've shared with us about what they have already started to learn or kind of gain perspective or insight into themselves just through what they've done in the software so far.
Yeah, I think it's been interesting, from our side. I think I can speak for both of us. When you create software and you're like, okay, this is what it's going to do. These are the things that people will learn from it, but then there's more that, comes from it. And it's just so helpful, this whole beta process, to talk about or to learn about how people are perceiving the software and the insights it's giving them beyond what you had intended and hoped, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I would love to spend today talking about some of those stories, some of those insights, some of the learnings that, we've seen so far. Before we get into it though, as we've talked about here before, our membership is growing every week, every month, and we have another member highlight that I'd love to share today.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, so this member is Louise Lacouf. I hope I said that name right. Louise, we haven't had a chance to meet yet. Looking forward to meeting you in an upcoming event. But she is the founder of Elderberry Grove. Elderberry Grove is for elderberry enthusiasts. They specialize in growing organic elderberry and pressing elderberry juice and syrup in British Columbia, Canada. After foraging wild elderberry, their enthusiasm grew and they thought, man, this tastes so good. And it actually works. Louise and Jed soon discovered that everything that was in the like cold and flu section of the store was made either with like dehydrated berries or it was super watered down. It didn't have the same kind of flavor and impact of what they were able to forage. And also, they saw that nothing was grown locally in British Columbia. So by 2017, they decided to plant their own elderberry grove, and they love growing for you fresh pressed elderberries and providing cuttings so that you can grow your own elderberries at home.
I love that added service beyond the CPG product of elderberry, juice, to be able to get a cutting and grow your own. I just love that so much. Welcome, Louise, to the membership. We're so glad to have you. As Chelsea mentioned, we're excited, to meet you at an upcoming live event. And we're just so grateful and thankful that you are here.
Yep. And if you want to learn more about Elderberry Grove, you can visit their website at elderberrygrove.ca. Okay, Sarah, I don't even think there's much more of a tease we can do here. I think let's take a break. Let's get right into it. I can't wait to hear, these stories and really dig into the learnings that we've seen this month.
Let's do it. Over 70% of early stage food brands fail due to cash flow issues, incorrect pricing, and thin margins. The Good Food CFO breaks through that noise. Partnering with founders from pre-revenue through their first $1 million in sales, we have created a first-of-its-kind financial software that is designed to teach you to understand your numbers, price for profit, and make confident financial decisions that support long-term sustainability. The Good Food CFO's proven framework is helping good food businesses thrive. Your business is next. For a limited time, you can head to thegoodfoodcfo.com and join the waitlist to receive 50% off your first month's subscription. Now, back to the show.
So, Sarah, as I mentioned in the top of the episode, we're going to be sharing some stories today from our beta testing group, the members that are beta testing. And we currently have 12 members that are beta testing the software. And we have 5 stories to share today, like from those members. And I think the big theme that we saw within these stories is that the software is really showing them what they didn't know they couldn't see inside their business
Mm,
and how they can change that essentially, right? Through the work in the software.
yeah.
So I'd love to start with our first story. And this one is going to start with a quote right off the bat. So this was a founder who, after attending the beta like kickoff event and like getting themselves set up in the software, they almost immediately shared with us. They said the kickoff was great, if a bit overwhelming, as it pointed a spotlight on all the financial info that I do not have at the ready. And what was so interesting to me about this one was, when I say this came in right away, like it came in right away. You and I were still sitting at the table after,
hmm
the event when the feedback came through. And I remember you very quickly saying like, well, that's great news.
Yeah, not that she felt overwhelmed, but that it was shining a spotlight
Yeah.
on the financial info that she did not already have. Yeah, because I think something that needs to be talked about, and I think, so many of our episodes hint at this, but it's like there's work that goes into this part of your business. And I think I might have shared here before, I used to work with a guy named Daniel. Daniel, this was at the catering company that I was a food sourcing manager for. Daniel used to say, it's work. It's called work for a reason. And I think about Daniel saying that from time to time because it's not all about the quote unquote fun stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what a lot of people think the fun stuff is, a lot of people, not all people, but a lot of people think it's the selling, the growing, the product development, right? That kind of stuff. Other people find the numbers, the strategy, the planning, they find that stuff fun, but it's all a part of the work. And if the software or these episodes or anything that we do at the Good Food CFO shines a light on a blind spot, what a founder might not have organized or available that will give them valuable insights once they do have it into their business, I'm doing my job. Right? So I'm happy that, another piece of feedback from this founder was this software is easier than I thought it would be. Typically software is, anxiety producing. So even though she felt that sort of overwhelm of like, oh, I don't have what I need to like maybe hit the ground running in this software, getting eyes on it
Yeah.
is step one. So then you can go and get that info and bring it to the software and learn something. And, in software development, one of the things that our coaches, my coach and others in the industry have told me is like founders have to have, or users of the software have to have quick wins. And
Mm.
this is not the kind of quick win that I was trying to get into the software, but it is a quick win. And I think, the truth is that some founders might get scared away by that, right? Someone might say, oh, if I don't have my information ready, I don't want to pay for the software and then have to go do a bunch of work. To that, I would say you're keeping your blind spots intact,
Yeah.
right? Come and look at it, face it, see what it is. Because on the other side of identifying the blind spots is having valuable insights into your business to
Yeah.
be able to build sustainably and profitably and be able to reach your financial goals. So I'm so grateful to this, founder and beta tester for being so honest. And also I'm proud of her for saying, yep, that was overwhelming. I got to pull some stuff together and I'm going to do it.
Yeah. And also it probably didn't end up being that hard, right? To
Yeah.
get that information. So
Yeah. And can we talk a second, Chelsea, about like what that information is, right?
yeah,
Because I also,
absolutely.
don't want to talk about it, kind of vaguely. We're talking about some core stuff. the cost to produce your products, right? Your cost of goods sold, the prices at which you sell your products in all the channels that you sell them at, and a profit and loss statement for at least the last month up to the last 12 months. That's the core data and information that we're asking founders to bring to the software to be able to get insights, to understand, how you're operating from a financial perspective, and then to create a path forward in the growth scenarios in the growth simulator. And while that information is it's like three things essentially, right? Many founders don't have it, or they had it at one point in their business, maybe when they were just starting out and they haven't updated their cogs, or they haven't, stayed on top of those things. And there's no shame in that. But rather, I hope this is an invitation to revisit it and see what you're working with, and get it into the software, and create a great path forward.
Yeah. And, when you speak about the information that you're asking for founders to bring into the software, it kind of actually leads right to our next story, which a founder shared that they were entering their expenses into the financial dashboard part of the software, right? So this is after you load your, upload your P&L, it's going to ask you to go in and categorize your different expenses and make sure that everything's falling in the right place. And this particular founder shared that while he was doing that, he found that he kept assigning things to operating costs. And he was like, this doesn't feel right. It feels like too much is going into my operating costs, and there's not really anything going into my cost of goods sold, right? And so I'm not sure if this is right. And he actually brought that question, I believe, to you in CFO office hours, where you guys were able to talk about it. And why don't you tell us how that conversation went?
Yeah. So I'll start by saying that the reason we have you upload a P&L and then go in and categorize it is because there's two different ways to look at your profit and loss statement. The way that it's entered into QuickBooks or whatever your accounting software is according to GAAP accounting principles. So generally accepted accounting principles. It's like the rules that your bookkeeper and you, if you're doing your books, need to follow for tax purposes. It has to be done a certain way. That way is not the best way to view your P&L as a founder or as a CFO. And so for years now, and it's been through our profit assessment, we've been teaching founders how to recategorize, I'm making air quotes, essentially your profit and loss statement, so that we can look at it in a highly customized way and a very summarized way to get insights into how your business is performing financially. So you're going to go through your income section. And after that, you go to cost of goods sold. And then you're going to get to your operating expenses, which I told this founder is always going to be your largest section. So while you'll likely have the most categories of operating expenses, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the most amount of money that you spend in your business, number one. And number two, you want to have your cost of goods sold section limited and very precise. And without going into too much detail here, the reason is because the cost of goods sold section and the gross profit margin line on your P&L hold a ton of valuable information. And you want the numbers there to be consistent in terms of this idea of when I produce a product and sell a product, these are the costs that go into that every single time. And there should be a direct relationship to production and those costs, right? So an example this founder gave was his marketing expenses. I spend money on marketing, which helps me sell my product. And the example I gave is, imagine if during the holiday season, you spend a lot on your marketing, right? And in the non-holiday season, maybe over the summer, you spend very little on your marketing. And if you have those costs in your cost of goods sold, there's going to be large swings in both your dollar spend in terms of cost of goods sold and in your percentage of revenue that your cost of goods sold makes up. And that's problematic from a analytical perspective because it makes your numbers hard to understand. We want there to be an identifiable relationship between your COGS and your revenue. And we want to be able to impact those numbers very directly through our actions. And the way to be able to do that is to be very specific and limited as to what goes in that COGS category. And that's a lot of detail, but it's important, I think, to talk about because this act, it's like going through your bank account to make sure every transaction's really yours and every transaction was for the right amount of money. Going through your P&L allows you not only to see what am I bringing in every month? What am I spending every month? Do I have the right things categorized as COGS and not COGS according to how it's going to be helpful for me to view my numbers? And it also just helps you spend a little bit of time in there to get familiar with your business and to understand the numbers. And that to me is a huge win. And when this founder, got through the process, it was like, okay, this is starting to make sense now. And I can see why we're doing this process and the value that it will bring. But, the last story that you shared, and this story are both about getting your information organized in a way that it will be helpful for you. And so again, it was like, I didn't think about this as a win that someone would have in the process, but it is. And it goes back to it. We've said before, financial work is not sexy. Data organization is not sexy. I'm one of those people who sees the value in organizing your data because when it's organized well and it goes into a system, what comes out of the system is the best possible information you can get, right? It is so helpful for you. It gives you so many insights. And if someone sees that inside the software and gets inspired to organize their data, that makes me extremely happy because I know what the outcomes of doing that work are going to be for the founder.
Yeah, and talking about organizing data, that actually takes us right into our next story. You're just teeing me up all over the place today. Yeah. Our next founder actually shared that they've been running their business for 8 years, selling through 5 different channels. So farmers markets, restaurants, wholesale, direct to consumer, and online. And they shared that they use a Shopify POS for some of their channels, but then they use QuickBooks for invoicing, with restaurants and wholesale. And they've been tracking everything, reconciling their books and managing their finances all along the way. But when they started to import their financial data into the financial audit section of the software, they realized that the way that they have set up their income accounts actually is not that helpful.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us some more about that?
Yeah, this was a fun conversation too. So I learned about this during CFO office hours as well. And I think that's something that's been fun to talk about. And maybe we can take a beat here to share this. The software is not designed to be a system where you just go and it's you and the computer. It's you and the computer and me.
Yeah.
It's you and the computer and CFO insights. It's you and the computer and coming to office hours for that supplemental information, because I never want to build something that creates isolation, right? Or leads to more isolation for founders. I think the community, the camaraderie, and the collaboration that comes from office hours is an integral part of this software, right? This ecosystem of us being your partner and building profitable and financially sustainable businesses. So I'm loving that there is, both pieces, and that people are coming to office hours and kind of connecting the dots, if you will, or getting that confirmation and affirmation of, okay, we're moving in the right direction. In this case, as you mentioned, the founder, when they uploaded their P&L, you have the ability to match your revenue that's in your P&L to the channels that you sell in, right? So as you're categorizing, you've got options, but the only options in our system are to categorize your revenue by channel. They had theirs categorized by product. I can go into why that's not helpful, or why we don't recommend that, but I'm not going to do that here. What I want to talk about is this founder going, oh, that's not how this is working here. And he automatically understood why, but he didn't know the next steps for what do I do to start to see my revenue by channel. And so he went down a number of paths. He said, I could do this, I could do that. I could put classes in QuickBooks, which is complicated, you guys. And so if you're thinking about classes, don't do that. It's another conversation we can have. Some bookkeepers are really well equipped to do that, but I think especially if you're doing it on your own, don't do classes. But we were able to just get down to, this is very simple solution. He thought that there was going to be hours of work. He thought that he was going to have to create like 20 plus products in QuickBooks and like, get everything sorted. But the solution was actually quite simple. And maybe you have a quote from him, Chelsea. I don't have it like directly in front of me, but I think he said something about like, oh, we're so close to all of this, like making complete sense.
Yeah,
now.
he actually said, this is going to save me so much headache. I feel like we are on the threshold of all of this making sense, as you said.
Yeah. So there's this moment for him where it was like this realization of, I don't have this set up the right way. The process of, okay, I could do it this way, I could do it that way. And then coming to office hours, airing that out with me and going, okay, here's all the things I have in my mind. And then being open to the suggestion of, here's how we typically do it. And it's going to require you to make, far fewer products and, far fewer steps, month to month when in keeping your books. And yeah, there was a sigh of relief that he made along with that statement, because not only is his bookkeeping process going to be easy, but the steps to getting things to kind of like match up with the software to get the most value out of it is going to be really easy. So I was super excited about that one.
Yeah, that seems like what might have seemed like a, oh my gosh, what are we doing here, into like a very easy win very quickly.
Yeah, and I'm going to say I think most of the time it can be like that,
Yeah.
and it's one of those moments of like, you think you've got it all, you set things up in a certain way and you are getting some level of value from it, right? But how can we get more value? Not only from the P&L itself, but from taking the time to be in the software and creating a path. And this moment of like holistically looking at everything that you have, there can be that moment, just like in our first story, of overwhelm. And then you go, oh, okay, actually, it's A, B, C, D. It's step 1, 2, 3, 4. And I got this. And the outcomes are going to be so, so good.
Absolutely. And the not just the outcomes, but the decision-making insights. That's the thing that we keep talking about, right? Is like how much you get in that like decision-making power from the software that I think is so powerful, should I say?
Yeah. And I think, talking about this and sort of prepping for this episode, we want this, as I said before, to be collaborative. And it's why we designed the software the way that we did, and why we are including office hours, right, as like part of that, whether it's a monthly package or an annual package. And we know that the majority of founders who've created food products didn't do it to be the numbers person within their business. And there was a really great quote from another founder who said, I don't want to be in this role forever. But the work that I'm doing now to set up the financial systems and information and get everything organized in a way that I understand, and I'll be able to review with whomever takes over this role, is setting me up for success. And I just
Yeah.
loved that, right? And we had the Kelly Scanlon episode 2 weeks ago, and she talked about how for her, she wanted to be in that sort of CEO, CFO strategic role in her business. So, you know, that was the lane that she wanted to be in. And that is some people, but then for others, it's like, you want to hand this work off, but
Mm-hmm.
having a hand in creating the foundations of it and setting it up in a way that makes sense to you and is valuable to you can really pay off in other ways, down the road.
Absolutely. And, our next story, I think, is one that will be familiar to a lot of people listening, but also what do they call it? A tale as old as time. Like we've talked about many different founders, many different businesses being in this position before,
Mm,
which is we're calling it like the profitable but broke paradox, right?
okay.
So this founder has been running their bakery for 16 years now, and they've gone through a couple of different like renditions of what that looks like. They've also had to raise money through the years, so there's a little bit of debt involved in this story. And by most measures, right, as they have shown, it's a very successful business. It is profitable on the bottom line. But the thing that they brought up during the beta testing was, as they're quoted saying, I'm profitable, but I'm like, I have no money in the bank account because it's
Mhm,
gone to pay for things like loans or credit cards or whatever. So, yeah, where is my profit?
mhm. Yeah, so one of the things that we do, and we've talked about this here on the podcast, is your full financial picture is not just your P&L. It's your P&L, it's your balance sheet, it's your cash flow. And it's a lot of things to manage and to keep in view. And so what we're striving to do with the software is bring those things together. So we are asking you to upload your profit and loss statement. We're asking you to do it on a cash basis usually, so we can see like how the cash is moving through your business. And we're also asking you to enter information like, what is your total debt amount, right? So like, do you have $50,000 in loans? Do you have $500,000 in loans? Do you have $1,000,000 in loans? And what are the current monthly loan payments that you are making to do, as it's called, service those loans, right? To keep them current, to keep them from defaulting. We bring those things together. We also ask you, what's your current cash balance, right? So what is your
Mm-hmm.
ability to pay those debts and your operating expenses, with the money that you have in the bank? And so we're attempting to make it easy for a founder to see the cash flow, the balance sheet, and the P&L together and how they work together. And so what I loved was this founder's feedback on the financial audit page where you can see your profitability, right? And it'll look just like what you see on your P&L, but then it also brings in that total monthly debt amount. And so you're able to see, am I bringing in enough cash? Am I bringing in enough profit to cover those monthly debt payments, number one? And if I'm covering them, do I have any money left over after that, right?
Yeah.
If you don't, you're essentially cash flow negative, right? If you don't have enough money to cover that debt. If you have enough to cover the debt, but nothing more, you're cash flow neutral, even though you're profitable. And if you have money to cover those debts and then some, then you're cash flow positive, right? And knowing that is extremely valuable. And it also gives these other insights into like, could I take on more debt, right? Like some people will say like, I don't have enough cash in the business, and so I need to take on more debt to be able to execute these things, right? And that's going to bring money into your business to help you do things, but then you're going to have to pay that debt back. And so when you
Mm-hmm.
add that debt payment amount to your business, what is that impact on your cash flow? What does the break even revenue number become, right? And how quickly do you need to get there to cover that? And so there's the insights from this founder, which was like, okay, I can see that, yep, I am profitable, but when you take that profit and you cover your debt payments each month, now I understand where my money is going. It becomes a little bit more clear. And it also will hopefully give people insights into like, can we afford more debt, or do we need to make our business more profitable? And if
Yeah.
the answer is yes to that question, then we've got the growth simulators to help you figure out what channels are we growing to create that increased profitability and cash flow in the business.
Yeah, I love that amount of visibility that founders are able to get here. Because as you said, it's like bringing all of those pieces together, not just looking at the bottom line on your P&L, not just looking
Mhm.
at, what does your bank account look like, but it's like bringing that all together and then saying, oh, this is what's actually happening inside my business.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
So this same founder had one other insight that she shared with me during, a conversation that we had, and that was around her channel margins. And I wanted to share this here as well, Chelsea, because I talk a lot, right? We talk a lot on this podcast about margins and the three margins, gross profit margins that matter a lot for a business: your product margins, your channel margins, and then your overall gross profit margins.
Hmm.
Because if those aren't A, positive, and B, big enough to cover all of your operating expenses, you cannot have a profitable business. And so similarly, this founder was like, I see I have a profitable business, but I also have a lot of channels. And we need some insights into, which channels we should be pursuing for growth, right? How do we make decisions on how do we grow our business if we don't have a lot of insights into the profitability of our products within each of the channels and some idea of our channel profitability? And so inside the software, within what's really our first step, she was still in the process of entering her products, but she was starting to see, what the both product margins and channel margins were in her business. So what is the product margin, in farmers markets? What is her product margins, on average in her retail store, et cetera? So it's just this eye opening of like, there are those, you know, channel margins, and they weren't even the full channel margins yet, but just of all of these products that I sell in a particular channel, right? What does that create as a product profitability within that channel? Meaning you might have a farmer's market where you've got 75% product margin, right, across that channel. And those same products sold to, in wholesale might have a 60% margin or maybe even a 50% margin. And that level of insight allows a founder to say, that farmers market channel might be the better one to pursue. And because we're dealing just with like product margins in that channel, there's still a little bit more work to do, but it's
Hmm.
taking you layer by layer into, okay, let me investigate this further, right? Let me think about how I want to grow my business. It's just another level of information that you can't get from your P&L. And historically, you have to run some pivot tables and, do some extra work to see the information. And we're trying to bring it to you in the software. So just by entering your product information and a little bit of channel information, you get some insights that go a bit deeper than what you can get from your P&L. And over time, as we continue to evolve this software, you're going to get more and more and more channel insights. But from day one, we think it'll be helpful for founders to say, this one looks profitable. This one looks like the one we want to pursue. Let's create a growth scenario where we focus
Mm.
on growing that channel. And what does that do to our numbers? And in the case of this founder, what does that do to our profitability and our cash flow, which is the objective, right? To like increase that profitability, increase that cash flow. So there's more money after paying back our monthly debts. Each part of the software, the idea is that it will help you create that path forward because there'll be insights on every level in every step.
Yeah. So the thing that's so interesting to me, Sarah, as we talk through these stories is that none of them are the same, right? None of these founders are going through the exact same thing, but they are in the sense that this software is showing them the things that they would not have seen on their own, right? It's showing them that the paper reality is not necessarily like the cash reality in their
Yeah.
business. And I think it's really just opening eyes to the possibilities of not just what they can do to change where they are right now or how they can structure things differently today, but then what that could mean in the future, like in those growth scenarios.
Yeah. I think too, something, one of the reasons I wanted to do this episode, Chelsea, is because there's not a one size fits all strategy for building a profitable and financially sustainable business. But I do believe that there's a framework. And we talk about that framework a lot. We talked about it in the Profit by Design episode. And the software is designed to create the framework so that within it, you can figure out your unique path. And beyond that, when we're all using the same framework, we can learn from each other better, right? Because we're all essentially speaking the same language. And so the software is the ability for us to speak the same language, to use the same tools, to understand one another and kind of where we are in the journey better, which means better coaching from me in office hours, right? Which means better conversations, here on the podcast and one-on-one. And so I think that creating the common language, that organizing the work, and I'm making air quotes, but like organizing that work so we all know what the path is, can only improve what we're able to create as an industry, right? Can only improve the outcomes of the individual businesses that we're wanting to support, and eventually will improve the data that we have around what is working, what is not, what are benchmarks that make sense for businesses from pre-launch to 1 million in revenue. And maybe there are, differentiators like in between. Like, we're going to have the ability to learn all of that, to share all of that with our community. And it's very, very exciting, but it starts with the framework and creating the same language and these insights that seem real simple and possibly little, but they birth these like really big ideas and points of value and, insights into the right path forward for each individual founder. I'm just so excited to be at the beginning of this process with everybody.
Yeah. And we very much are at the beginning. As you said, we're still in beta testing now, hoping that the launch is coming within the next few weeks as we get through the beta test. And having this software available to many, many more founders out there who can then come in and learn to speak the same language.
Yeah. And I'll just speak to like what we're hoping for, like why the word hope is there instead of like, this is the plan.
Yeah.
We're launching an MVP. That's the minimum viable product. And that product still needs to have tons of value for everybody. And one of the reasons we're talking about this topic today is because we're discovering the value. Me as the CFO creating the software, there's an intended value. But I don't know if that is the true value that the users will get until they use it. And we're discovering additional points of value that we weren't expecting. And what that informs for us is, are there more tools we can put in place, right? So like for people who are discovering that their P&L needs to be organized in a certain way, we know that our P&L customization masterclass is a valuable resource for people. It's informing whether or not we make that part of the software. It's informing how we create the growth simulations and scenarios, right? So it's like, we cannot do everything we want to do in this MVP, and we won't, right? Because also we have to launch and get people in there and continue to use it. But the reason that it's hope and not this is the exact timeline is because we can't predict exactly when all of the features that will officially make up that core software version will be ready. I will tell you that Kyle, our developer, turns around changes really quickly. He turned around changes from our first beta feedback session in less than a week.
Yeah.
And so the iterations are very, very quick. And so with continued good feedback and continued quick iteration, we hope to be launched in early November. But we won't know until we continue to get feedback from our beta testers. So just wanted to speak to like why we're hoping for certain things instead of having solid timeframes.
So if you're listening and you want to get insights like this into your business, you can definitely get on our wait list at thegoodfoodcfo.com. And don't forget that if you are on that wait list, you are going to get that 50% off your first month's subscription. All right, Sarah, thank you so much for coming today and sharing these stories, sharing these insights. And I'll also say thank you to all of our beta testing founders for sharing these stories with us and allowing us to share them here as well. I know that you have said multiple times at this point that their feedback, their insights, their learnings have been incredibly valuable. And we just want to thank them for coming along on this process with us.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This was fun, Chelsea.
Wanting to dive deeper into your financial strategy? Visit thegoodfoodcfo.com to learn more about the Good Food CFO software. We'll be back with a brand new episode in 2 weeks.
This podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only and is not intended to provide personalized financial, tax, or legal advice. Every business is different, so please consult with qualified professionals about your specific business and financial situation. Any actions you take based on what you hear on this show are at your own risk.